So I was at a breakfast this morning, and it was like um, AI for marketers hosted by the Goring Institute at the University of Cincinnati, and it was at this place called the Manor House, which was like super fancy. They have a coat room. I did have a coat, but when a place has a coat room, I'm like, ooh, this place is fancy because I'm pretty. That's the criteria. Well, there were chandeliers as well, so the chandeliers. Yeah, coat room, not a coat rack, like a whole separate room for it. It's like a hotel room for my coats. And then there was chandeliers. So I was immediately, this is fancy. And we go in, and there was a bunch of local business leaders there, and they had brought in two speakers, a CEO for social media locally, and another person who owns a marketing agency. And she travels and does talks. And it was great. Her name is Kendra Ramirez. Look her up on LinkedIn. Anyways, what I was fascinated by was how entry level the discussion needed to be, and how there were just so many people there, all different age demographics, but they were local businesses. They were hardware sellers, product sellers, digital sellers, PR agency people that are local.
I think when I've been doing talks both at my college and at other colleges across the country, I regularly present to rooms that have a mixed range of folks that have never used these tools. So I'll do a show of hands exercise where we'll just see who has used these tools, which tools have you used? Have you used it for play? Have you used it for work? And we know from the Titan Partners study that's come out that students are using AI more than faculty, and faculty are using it more than administrators. So my little pitch when I present is, look, we need to start playing with these tools. I've even themed some talks around the urgency of play, that if we're not playing with these tools, we're not going to be able to make choices about how to use them within our disciplines. And it's urgent. It's absolutely urgent because it's moving really quickly. If you look at McKinsey's report connected with the use of AI in med tech, it's everything that can possibly be reimagined with AI is being reimagined right now. And so it's urgent that we start playing with these tools.
Well, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Immersive Medical Podcast. We have a very special guest for you today. His name is Reed Dixon. And Reed, welcome to the Immersive Med Pod.
Devin, it is always good to be with you.
So let's just dive right in. Reed, you're Director of Online Education at Pima Community College, is that right?
I am Director for Online Faculty Experience and Innovation at Pima Community College.
All right. So as this person integrated with faculty and online experiences, I assume both student and faculty. Do you do some experience work for students as well?
I mean, I think that everything that we're doing is students first at Pima. So we're angled towards making sure that all that we engage with focuses on the students. We try to, on the AI side, since that's what we're talking about today, make sure to have the voice of students on panels and making sure that we're learning from our students because, they are the emerging experts, in some cases more than we are. And in some cases, we need to really aggressively lean towards what they are sharing with us in our classrooms. Like we had a panel back in April in which one of our students said to the chancellor, who was also on our panel at the time, we really need a prompt engineering degree. And another student said, posed the question, what is the importance of specialists in the era of AI? Should we not be more focused on generalists and our ability to quickly learn and pivot with AI? They're posing good questions and we need to be listening to them. And so in that respect, absolutely everything that we do as educators should be leaning towards how do we create a space for students to be experts in the room around things that we may not be experts with ourselves, which is kind of uncomfortable for a lot of educators.
So a lot of our listeners they're in the medical field. They are clinical educators or they are trying to become a clinician, whether that's a nurse or a paramedic or even a resident physician and a doctor. And technology, artificial intelligence, immersive technologies is kind of barreling down the mountain towards healthcare.
Yep.
And public health at the same time as staffing shortages and burnout and all of that. So we wanted to have you on today to have a little discussion about, from a director of online, someone who knows about LMSs, knows the challenges that faculty face when they are working in D2L or Canvas or you name it. How do you help faculty approach new innovations like AI and immersive technologies when they are still faced with the existing tools of an LMS that they have to have for their educational goals? So, right, that's kind of like, how do we integrate or even approach using new technology when I have to continue to use this established technology and it's not quite native yet?
So I think with faculty, as with students, but especially with faculty, we like to begin with trying to get a clear sense of what are the pain points for educators and starting from their place of need. Because one more technology can sometimes feel like another unfunded mandate. It's not always fun to play with tech, and we have to start off with their place of need and then bring that technology towards that place of need. And I want to throw the question back at you, Devin, because back at the COVID outbreak,
Oh, yeah.
the county superintendent's office reached out and asked if we could do a presentation. You and I presented
You and
to
I.
all the
Yeah.
K-12 schools in Pima County on how to use Zoom and how to use technology to get through the crisis. And it was a crisis point. And you brought exuberance. That's one of the things you do. You bring joy, you bring a sense of play, and you did during those workshops that we held for the county. How are you doing that right now with the technologies that you're seeing, medical professionals and educators and students alike, take on? It's cognitive load to learn a new technology.
Sure.
How do you bring that sense of play forward with them that doesn't overwhelm them?
You hold their hand and you do it in person whenever possible. And so, yeah, and as technology gets better, you can do more and more things online. So, for example, if it's an immersive learning opportunity, you have to, on the educator side, practice presenting the output through a two-dimensional window for that person on the other side, so they can get a feel for the immersive visualization. And that would be, can I, in a Zoom, screencast my VR POV so the person can get an understanding of what we're trying to accomplish through their little computer screen?
Right.
And when it comes to bringing exuberance or excitement to new technologies, it really has to do with giving them a practical application in the moment in front of them and holding their hand and going, look at, yeah, absolutely. Step one, you can do step one. And when you do step one, you already are seeing a result. So an example of that is I took a trip over to University of Cincinnati and engaged them with an AI GPT that I constructed for them that helped them with their simulations. It guided them in a step-by-step on here's how to do A, B, and C if you want to complete this medical simulation. But they were conversing with a GPT, and it was very much in beta, but that's how I engaged them with, did you guys ever build your own GPT before? No, not yet. Well, I have something for you to beta test. Also, here's how I built it. Also, this is now an educational opportunity on building GPTs. So I think it starts with practical use, hand holding, and then something that you can actually put into action.
I would say for your medical educators, throwing information at folks is not enough. Yes, there is the wow factor. They want to know that ChatGPT passed the U.S. medical licensing exam in July of 2023. They want to know all the interesting points about how AI is emerging and doing. But what I promote from the very start is, okay, let's all get out our phones and download one common app. And it might be ChatGPT, it might be Gemini, it might be Claude, it might be some specific AI tool that's emerging. But getting them to use a tool to do something is huge, because it opens up the room to realize, okay, there's not necessarily a broad sort of challenge point towards accessing this knowledge. This technology is actually hyper intuitive. When we work with it, it adapts to us. We can learn just by talking to it, especially with the bots that we're using right now. And so whenever I do workshops, I regularly will be presenting information, but asking them to please be on your phones while I present. So there might be a room full of 150 people, and I want them to be on their phones while I'm talking. I want them to be engaged. I want them to be trying something that's connected with the questions that I'm posing. And I will actually ask them to do this search on their phones, or pose this question on their phones, or ask about this pain point on their phones as we're talking. Whatever their specific concerns are, bring it into the tool and have a conversation with it. And then as we dig deeper into other sort of news points that might be of interest to them, I'll share with them all the different gains that come from GPT-4 related to the clinical care exam, or relating to how AI is being used to help medical forms be easier to understand. I'll try to find information that's specifically of interest to the audience that I'm speaking with. And they will be amazed, for example, at that today.com story where that kid had 17 doctors and couldn't get a diagnosis until they dumped the MRI results into ChatGPT, and he suddenly had a diagnosis after 17 doctors. Not to say that
Right.
AI doesn't make mistakes, but that it is aggressively going to be used on the side to support what we're doing. And that's a wow factor. But they should be on their phones the whole time as we're talking, trying to pose questions to it, to break it if they will, to interact with it in a way that their students might be.
Let's talk a little bit about implementation and integration. So we're speaking to faculty, and maybe they are health educator faculty, or maybe they're not. Maybe they're general core education faculty at the college. It doesn't matter. They're all using the same LMS for their students' syllabus, their grades, their output of success. All of that has to go through the LMS. So how do you help an educator approach and utilize these new technologies like AI or an immersive technology? How do you just help them approach that? Because they have to start using it. Maybe it's a mandate at their college, or it's just a personal mandate where they're like, we have to keep up.
Sure. I mean, there's many ways to do this. One of the approaches through a structured environment is to have a cohort experience where you're teaching a class. My dean and I co-developed an AI for teaching and learning course where we will walk them through a series of practices that we believe are most helpful for engaging, educators across all disciplines and rethinking their core practices in a cohort experience. So folks that are nursing faculty will have conversations with folks that are math faculty and writing faculty, and they'll discuss how students are expecting to be able to use AI, how to communicate with AI in mind with our students. In general, when I do workshops at our college or beyond, I'll start with a few principles. The first one being, even if you don't feel like you're comfortable with AI, you're not an expert with AI, it's really important to set expectations for your students. Because, and I said this in a recent talk with D2L, we don't want students to suddenly face the the physical equivalent of a slap in the face when they get that F for appearing to have used AI within an assignment. This is a contentious time in terms of AI detection tools as well, because these tools generate false positives. You're all familiar with the idea of a false positive from the medical profession, but they do make major mistakes, and the rates are much higher than we knew before. And that's a persistent problem that a lot of colleges have turned off their AI detection tools because of this problem. We also see
So
can
can I just ask a quick question there?
Sure.
I've heard about students cheating. That was actually like the first big scare when GPT came out, ChatGPT 3.5. They're like, everyone's going to cheat. It'll write my essays for me. But you just basically touched on it. How practical, not practical, how frequent is that happening?
Right.
And on top of that, they're turning off their AI detection tools. So it's being identified, but then also not policed.
Here's the deal. The last report that came out from Titan Partners said that 75% of students will use AI whether it's prohibited by the teacher in the institution or not. That's the reality check. The workplace, we're seeing similar trends where employees are using it, whether they're transparently sharing their use of it or not. It's with us. When it first emerged with ChatGPT, Chegg lost market share.
Chegg.
You know, like when college students at certain campuses aren't ready for something, they're like, I'm going to Chegg it. That's a verb people use.
Or Quizlet. Yeah, I'm sure they both lost a bunch.
Well, Quizlet is another use case scenario, but like, Quizlet, you can actually let it create quiz questions for you to study content, and students are using that even in the K-12 level. It's a lot of tools are using AI to support quizzing practices where you're studying for something. You can create study guides with it. Our students are using it to sometimes not just do shallow learning, but to do deeper learning. As one of our students said to us at 2 a.m, he'll say, explain this to me like I'm 8. Okay, now explain it to me like I'm 12.
Right,
Now
of
explain it to me
course.
like I'm 16. So you can take a really complicated concept that may be coded in gatekeeping medical language that seems exclusive and say, okay, make it simple for me, please, or make it simple for my
Absolutely.
patient. But our students, in particular, need to be able to have the translative capacities of these tools to understand, unfortunately, the very exclusive diction of medical, of legal, etc. And they're using these tools already to support that. And I would just say that, yes, AI is going to be misused and it will be positively used. And the broader questions that we're trying to promote are around how do we engage students in honest conversations about how do we use AI in ways that will help you beyond this class. What are you going to be able to need to do with AI in the workplace? How are you going to be able to show your worth, Devin? With
Sure.
the going expression back in March of last year was AI is not going to replace you, but somebody who knows AI will.
Right.
And
I've heard that too.
there's debates around that. Granted, there's going to be companies that are more interested in maximizing profit and keeping the quality of care the same. But there will be companies that actually are like, you know what? We're going to keep our staff, but we're going to radically improve our quality as a way to demonstrate our value. And we're going to use AI to support that for questioning, helping us reflect on our practices as doctors or as teachers or whatever, letting AI help us analyze everything we do to improve quality.
Right.
I think there's a capacity to really radically improve quality right now around everything that we're doing, especially standards of care. And if you're like somebody like me who believes that healthcare is a human right, AI is going to provide healthcare access to people who don't have it globally. And it is going to be flawed, but it's going to be a point of access that we haven't had before, especially if we don't see technology starting to do gatekeeping around the existing data sets that are going to be closed data sets that train the AI in the future.
There's already use cases for that. You can go to drlex.ai and it'll give you a differential diagnosis and help you out get through it. And same thing with K-Health. K-Health. Both of those are active in use right now.
So I asked ChatGPT to use Bing to search for all the different medical AI tools this morning. Just wanted to see what the latest news was that it would give me. I didn't go into Perplexity, which I also love as an answer engine, but I went into ChatGPT 4, which is so much better than 3.5. Again, for those of you on the call,
don't even use 3.5.
Use the 4.0. It sometimes is annoying because it'll give you a shorter answer when you search the web, and so you have to push it and say do a more thorough piece, and you'll type the word continue and let it dig deeper. But it gave me a pretty good summary of the types of tools emerging, Devin. It didn't even mention the one you mentioned, but it mentioned some others. And what I was concerned about mostly was, okay, well, how is this going to reinforce equity problems? Some of them have paywalls, some of them do not. And that's going to be a real concern for how we think about working with patients, how we think about working with doctors, et cetera. I don't know the answer to that, but that's something to keep in mind.
I can give you some examples. I actually used K-Health. So my wife was sick. There was a stomach bug going around, and she had some nausea, vomiting. And I'm like, let's try K-Health. In 2 hours, we had a diagnosis. We had spoken to a doctor, and we had our prescription waiting for us at the pharmacy, and we did not have to go in.
That's intense.
She was feeling better an hour after that, right? And what did that cost? So what did that cost? It cost $75. That $75 included 2 weeks of follow-up with that same doctor remotely.
Interesting.
That prevents readmission.
I mean,
our problems were solved. We didn't have to go into the hospital. That's a huge deal.
And remote care is going to be really changing the medical industry. And AI supportive remote care is going to radically change the AI industry as well. Again, for our students and faculty, the broader question is try to imagine, okay, what are our students going to need to be able to do with AI when they're, as EMTs or as nurses, when they're out in the field? And what if they don't have Wi-Fi? Are they able to still complete those practices without the AI? They need to be able to use AI for basically self-questioning to make sure that their quality of care practices are as good as possible, but also to be able to go without AI in a pinch. That's the new future. We don't want to become too much of have a dependency issue with the technology, but we also need to recognize that that it will make our work so much better. It has access to the general knowledge of the web, which can be good and bad, because it may reproduce the sort of the most vanilla, middle of the road solutions that are the most common knowledge solutions rather than the inventive ones. But at least for the generative AI bots, they will be a companion, whether they're consumer facing or not. And I expect that we'll see more medical professionals having not AI that's consumer facing, but AI that is, coming out of knowledge trained on the Journal of American Medical Association, or knowledge trained from specific sources, just like LexisNexis has its own AI for legal. And there's another AI being trained with Anthropic's tool Claude that is all legal data, that's closed data sets. So we will see tools just like the one you mentioned that will be at beck and call always, unless there is a Wi-Fi breakdown.
I got to do a shout out really quick to Harvey. That's a legal lawyer, AI lawyer called Harvey, and I just think that's incredible. It's a good name. There's
an article at JAMA Network that talks about how AI is going to change the experience of med school. There's if you just look around,
what do you think about that? What do you think about Harvey? What would it mean to you if a resident could have finished med school in 3 years instead of 4 or 5?
The elephant in the room with the medical industry is that everything is overpriced, and maybe the insurance companies are swallowing, or we don't see the bills. But if we could lower the cost of medical school, conceivably, that could have an impact down the road on the cost of things that we experience as clients. Our doctors need to have a less expensive route towards getting their MDs. Our lawyers need a less expensive route towards getting their JDs. Everyone needs a less expensive route. And I'm a big fan of the idea that let's not just focus on the idea of a one and done degree, but on lifelong learning. So instead of focusing on a 4-year degree and you're certified, that we really focus more on lifelong continued learning by doctors in their specific disciplines. And I think AI will be able to support that in rethinking the model for how we're doing medical degrees. I anticipate that will happen, where medical degrees will be, they'll still be clinicals, there'll still be residencies, there'll still be all kinds of required practices.
All the hands-on stuff's got to happen. Absolutely.
And but my guess is that the nature of how learning happens will shift. I do think we'll see educational technologies that allow for a social annotation experience. So right now, within tools like Hypothesis or Perusal, you can go in with a text, highlight some text, and have a shared conversation with 5 students. I envision very soon we'll see the same capacity with an anatomy diagram or a human body diagram or a VR version where people can go in through an augmented reality or an extended reality tool, identify a specific situation, look at the scenario connected with it, and then have a discussion with 5 other peers around what strategies they might take to address this problem with the body, or how they might approach bedside manner with this specific patient who has this specific need or cultural background, etc. So we're going to see, I think, instead of drill and kill, chalk and talk, cram for tests culture taking over our educational spaces, we might see an opportunity for sort of spaces that are tech supported, that allow for deeper inquiry, deeper conversation, and there might be even AI bots built into those conversations. Things will shift, Devin, around where we're going with all this educational technology. And, I have no idea, to be frank, what's going to happen, but I'm pretty certain that every industry will be touched by AI, and all of the educational tools that we're using will radically shift relating to AI to make them more authentic and therefore less susceptible to the misuse of AI in the educational context.
All right, so I got one for you.
Bring it.
In 1926, Henry Ford popularized the 40-hour work week. It was all manufacturing, automated manufacturing. That's where we got it from. So Ford's research found that working longer hours only led to a small increase in productivity, and that was short-lived. So in 1922, he's like, we're gonna close the plants on Saturdays and Sundays. So there's your 40-hour, 5-day work week. 1926. It is almost 100 years later, and we are still working a 40-hour work week, right? And now AI has arrived on the scene. So what do you say to productivity gains when AI becomes an adjunct tool for faculty, suddenly saving more time, possibly producing more competent students faster? How does this impact their, quote, 40-hour work week for educators?
I mean,
Is
I'm not
this
sure.
seen as, you know what I mean? Like, is this seen as
I, I, I
something
I would
that's
imagine.
scary? Are we afraid that we're going to be replaced by AI? The teacher's afraid they're going to be replaced by AI, or do they see what else can I accomplish? How can I maybe spend more time with my students one on one and address their mental health needs as they're going through their learning journey? Because AI is here making this a more productive classroom, and I actually have more time. Or they're
So,
grading my papers for me.
so a couple of things that come to mind. First off, and I know that you won't love this answer, but it's both. I think there's very real fears, and at least for the folks that I talk to, folks are excited about using AI to rethink how they're teaching, and they are concerned about the reality that some companies may decide, okay, well, we're going to adjust our approach to labor and hire less people. But as you said to me previously, Devin, there are major labor shortages relating to medical professions in the field right now, and we're not able to provide the quality of care that we need because we don't have enough people. So is that something where we need to shift how we do training and education? Is it something where we need to bring AI in as a support? Is it both? Probably all of those. With every technology that's emerged that is disruptive in a way that automates, there's been a skill shift need where people are having to upskill. And I think labor has figured out how to keep hold of the 40-hour work week, regardless of Henry Ford, who is celebrated. I think it's the people that make sure to say, okay, we need a healthy life work balance, and they advocate for that and they make sure to do so. And we see that in the quality of care, that if folks are not able to get a decent balance, they burn out, they quit. They're not able to keep doing the work that they need to do. So I think um, moving forward, we are going to have, at least within the higher education space, an increasing need to make sure that we provide a balanced experience for our students. That I'm not really sure how to answer this question, Devin, but can you just rephrase your question again so that I can get to the heart of it? Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I mean, what I'm driving at is that we have a 40-hour work week because of the way we've done work for the last 100 years. And now we have this incredible artificial intelligence assistant that can start to take over tedious and menial tasks, especially the ones that force us to comb through data, information, papers, words, letters, all of these things that are required, especially in education, grading papers, you know what I mean? And also providing tutors for students. Suddenly, these tools become accessible to faculty. We're finding many, many faculty and educators are resistant. Even some schools are resistant for a number of reasons. Students are going to cheat. The AI detection tools aren't accurate, and so we can't police it. It's going to replace faculty. But there's this sweet spot, I feel like, if we can thread the needle, where faculty potentially embrace some of these tools, which is part of the reason why we wanted to chat with you today is how do you even approach embracing these tools with today's technology, with today's LMSs for online educators? But the faculty who embrace them will see productivity gains. And what will they do with that extra time? And how will students benefit? Are we going to see associate's degrees happening in less than 2 years? That's
In,
the average now because you can be more productive as a student. You get more information out of your classroom in a less amount of time. I'm really posing the question because I don't know, because it
the,
would require educators and institutions to really fully adopt the artificial intelligence tool set or the immersive tool set where suddenly when you're learning something, you're surrounded by it.
so the medical and nursing educators that I know, even long before Gen AI emerged, lean towards adopting technologies as time-saving tools. Even a Google drawing, they will once they learn that Google Drawing allows for collaborative work where students can co-create a resource, students will be creating study guides with each other to prepare for things, and that'll be shared forward with future students. They're really interested in using existing technologies to improve the quality of the experience and to save themselves time. And when I work with our faculty, one of the things that I will talk about is, let's nurture a sense of play with these tools. Let's acknowledge their shortcomings. Let's have open discussions because it's changing every week. We need to think about, how do we train our dragons so they don't reproduce the biases of the web? How do we, it is astonishingly right and astonishingly wrong. It's both. How do we engage in a world where our students can have a profoundly adaptive experience where they're using AI in a way that makes sense to them, that the knowledge that might have felt distance to them is suddenly moving into their familiar, to things that they're interested with, metaphors that explain concepts that were otherwise hard. You can ask AI to please explain this using a metaphor connected with something you love. And if you haven't tried that yet, I would strongly recommend doing so. But with our general use case, and I want to go back to this sort of walkthrough of points that I've been raising. We need to communicate with our students and set clear expectations. Number two, we need to go in and think about, okay, well, let me red team one of my activities to see if I could use AI in that activity in the classroom. What are the positive ways that I could use AI, but also what are the negative ways that I could use AI? And then how might I change this learning to make it so that it's less susceptible to the misuse of AI, or more likely to be used in positive ways by AI? Is it chunking it into smaller pieces? We know that end product assignments don't show process. Process matters. Is there ways that we can recreate our assignments that involve process, so that students can show their work and reflect on their work in each phase? And they can reflect on how they've used AI as well in the process, and even share transcript links. Right now within Gemini and within ChatGPT, all students can click on the share button and share their cognitive work, the questions that they're posing. That is something we can continue to promote, even though there are not good dashboards for the consumer-facing AI tools. We want to know what kinds of questions students are posing and if they're posing more interesting questions. And the technology in the future will have dashboards that help us know if students are posing increasingly complex questions that use an increasingly complex frame of thinking. And in this case, like questions that medical doctors should be, or that nurses or that EMTs should be posing relating to any knowledge that's generated. We'll see AI coaching us on how to use AI. I know it sounds weird.
Yeah, no, it's true.
But that's gonna be part of the new era of using AI for self-questioning, not just for getting an answer, but for having a Socratic experience where AI poses a question to us and we respond to it. And we can train AI to be Socratic, not just to give us answers, to help us think more rigorously about what we think we know. And if we coach our students to do that, and then share the discussion thread, and then reflect on it, and then self-assess about their experience, then it's a much more authentic and less hackable AI experience. I hate to say that. I'm not totally opposed to the idea of hacking learning either. I just want students to be transparent about how they're hacking the learning experience.
How are you coaching educators to document their use of AI or their students' use of AI? Is it just copy it into a doc, save it, add it to your curriculum archives so that way it's a part of the record? Or is there a process that you have that you recommend to faculty to document the usage of AI so it's a part of the learning curriculum?
Sure thing. So back in, I guess it was, I want to say March or April of 2023, I wrote a piece called "The AI Elephant in the Classroom: Promoting Transparent AI Practices" for, I guess the quiet part that I was excited about was I was using AI to write the article. And, everything that I wrote, I was interacting with AI throughout. But this was prior to the emergence of the ability to share transcripts. What I was promoting is, okay, let's include a footnote with everything you submit saying, how did you use AI for this assignment? And already you can cut and paste the full scope of your inquiry into a Google Doc or a Microsoft Word document and share that. And if you're asking your students as part of their process to do a multi-turn or extended chat with AI, where they're posing at least 7 tough questions to their bot, that's requiring them to do integrated reading and writing around medical knowledge sets. That's cognitive work at 2 a.m, where they're getting an immediate response to whatever they're thinking. And ironically, their ideas are valued by the AI and they're engaged with. And you can coach the AI to be an expert or to be the opposite. You can coach the AI to play the role of a client with specific needs. And that's true even with these vanilla consumer facing products. We'll see better versions of the AI. But in terms of documenting the experiences, cut and paste is always a thing. And at that time when I wrote the article, um, promoting just a transparent practice, say, I'm not going to penalize you for using AI, but I am going to ask you to transparently share how you're using it. And ideally, we're celebrating students who have the most innovative uses of AI in the medical profession so that we can lift them up as leaders within our classrooms. Now we have transcript sharing, which is, it's not commonly called that, but the chat thread transcript can be shared with the major tools except for Claude right now. Hopefully, Anthropic will update their model and allow us to share threads. But if they share that thread, that's one piece. It's just a link. They go in, they click on the button, and they share the link that includes their questions and their responses. And second to that, that can be a lot of text. That can be, well, I did a download of all of my discussions with ChatGPT the other day, and it was many, many thousands of pages. Granted, students may have 40-page submissions of one single discussion with AI around a specific topic. And that's not a bad thing, but they should also be expected to go in and reflect on that discussion. What did they learn? What seemed
If
to
I
be...
were faculty, I would use AI to help me reflect on 40 pages.
And McGraw-Hill has a
documented
product out
discussion.
right now that's using AI to do grading. Companies have AI built in to do assessment, but there is a problematic to that, Devin, which is relating to FERPA, HIPAA, COPA, student privacy, student data, that a lot of folks have not built in a process to say, hey, do I have your permission to utilize AI to assess your work as part of my assessment practices so that I can utilize AI, but then provide personalizations on top of that. So you're getting the AI feedback, but then you're getting quality personalized feedback from me as well that might be shorter, but it's that human touch that we're keeping in the loop. We don't want to, and we don't see a future. I don't see a future where the human educator is replaced, because we bring insights and that ability to connect that AI cannot. But AI brings the ability to have a conversation at 2 a.m. immediately that we don't have.
Asynchronous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and AI allows you to comb through a lot more data as an educator.
Mm-hmm.
So then you can ask for more data from your students. This is interesting.
It's incredible. My daughter, who's she's a sophomore, did an assignment, and it was out of my league, and I wanted to give her feedback, but I just didn't know what.
Oh no!
It was like a macroeconomics class, and I was like, okay, I'd like to think that I know this. I took econ once upon a time, but it was a little out of my league. So I took a picture of it. It was a handwritten essay, and ChatGPT 4 was able to translate the handwriting into text and then analyze the quality of it and look at the strengths and shortcomings. That's just in our house, and with her permission to do that. But if I were to do something like that in the classroom, I'd want to get permission, I think, or at least have some sort of a practice within the college to say, we do use AI to support and speed up our assessments so we can get feedback to you more quickly. If you're uncomfortable with AI digesting your data, then let us know.
I got a question about that.
Yeah.
I got a question about that.
Sure.
So first of all, models can be done in a silo at an organization, so that way the large company is not training on the data. Okay?
Of course, but in general, and this is an important point for listeners, the most common use of AI is going to be the consumer-facing ChatGPT 3.5. But if you have the tools of the future can definitely preserve privacy and security, and we'll see institutions buying those kinds of products that allow us to assess student work without training their models on student data.
So here's my question. What's the difference? No, maybe that's not the way to put it. The question is, do educational organizations feel the need to ask students permission for teachers' assistants to review their work?
It's an emerging discussion. I've had
What
conversations with
I,
teachers who feel guilty for using AI to grade,
I don't
but they
mean
were in a
AI.
pinch and they had to do that. And the
I
institutions,
mean
go ahead.
the current model, the current institutional model is you've got teaching assistants, graduate students, or the next year, your senior level students helping out with the junior and the sophomore level classes, and they're doing um, extracurricular work by helping their teachers' assistants. But currently, there's no actual mechanism for asking the students permission if the teacher's assistant can review the work, right? Because it's their proprietary data. And that human is going through their work, seeing their personal work, and then making a decision on it, giving a suggested grade or helping the faculty grade it for them. And then that affects the student's grade.
I,
That is way less subjective
I don't,
than an artificial intelligence bot. So I'm curious where the line is and why AI is the scary one.
so in my awareness of how TAs and GAs and other teaching assistants work, they're trained to follow FERPA, HIPAA, COPA compliance, and in their roles, they're working in a way that is consistent with what the lead educator in the room has to do. And conceivably, all AI tools could likewise be trained on FERPA, HIPAA, and COPA compliance. Um, it's not like whatever students enter into the AI tool is going to be regenerated. It's in a sense flattened in a way that can't just be reproduced on the web easily. You might have heard that with a lawsuit between the New York Times and ChatGPT that ChatGPT could reproduce
Yeah,
first paragraphs and second paragraphs and third paragraphs, but that's because those articles have been reprinted thousands of times on the web
right.
and in Reddit and elsewhere. In this context, the concern is not necessarily that students' knowledge will be reproduced verbatim, but rather that students have a reasonable concern that their information is being absorbed into a set of data that they don't know very much about. They might have heard, for example, the recent article that came
Mm,
out by Kashmir Hill from the New York Times, who found out that when you're driving down the road, GM is going to send your driving data to LexisNexis, and LexisNexis is going to sell that data to the insurance agency who may raise your rates, even though you didn't know that your data was being gathered. So there's anxiety about the idea of our data being gathered. That is real for students. It's also real for clients. I think, and this is a question that I think you'll have to face within your industry, Devin, which is the question of anxiety around what Kashmir Hill called surveillance capitalism, the idea that our data is being sold to somebody else. And in the medical industry, that means
yeah,
everything that we might not want to put on our reports for fear that the insurance industry is going to get it will be 10 times more visible due to AI. AI is going to be able to scan information that we can put in our medical record and share with our doctors. And will our doctors be sharing that with insurance? Will our rates go up? Those are weird pieces that are going to make sometimes patients less likely to share. And yet
it's
on the
very
flip
interesting.
side, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, do your flip side. Yeah.
So the flip side is, patients like students are sometimes more comfortable talking to their AI.
Yeah.
This is the
Yes.
weird phenomenon, like the help-seeking behaviors of students. There's been numerous studies that have come out that say the students are more comfortable sharing,
Yeah.
insecurities with an AI than with their teacher of record. And I think we'll see something similar happen with clients that are talking to an AI where they're more comfortable sharing with AI, as long as they know that data is being secure and safe. There's always going to
It's
be
interesting.
outliers who just are not comfortable with their data being shared, Devin. That's the point that I want to get back to. And I want to respect that because there's a lot that we don't know at this point.
Yeah, I think that's actually the key point is the question mark. Is wait, where's this going? I can't see the AI. It's in the cloud. So I just put something into it. Where did that go? We currently don't ask that question when a physician takes a photograph of your wound and it goes into your electronic health record because you just trust that the private company that owns your electronic health record and information is not doing anything with it, which is silly. Of
It is
course,
silly,
they
and
are
maybe
doing something with it, but they
yeah.
are doing it in a way that is quote unquote monitored or has legal parameters, or is prosecutable, right? Because of HIPAA. So, for example, Epic, they can ingest all your data, but they can't publicly do anything with it without your permission. But they are absolutely within their closed house, learning from everyone's electronic health record.
So this is the realm of data sovereignty, at least in higher ed, and I think it's going to happen in medical industries where we're thinking more
Yeah.
carefully. I watched The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks the other night, which had me in tears. It was really well done, but we don't have a history of being entirely honest about how data is being used.
Right.
And so it's an equity issue in which I think both the ed tech sector and the higher education spaces need to say, okay, well, these are the ways that we're providing students choice around how their data is being used. This is exactly how data is being gathered and shared forward. And it's kind of like a patient's bill of rights with AI added to it. What is going to be the expectation for how our data is digested, ingested, and utilized by AI moving forward? It's a sticky question, but it's something we have to consider.
And this is touching on a subject, and we should start wrapping up because we are running out of time here, and we got a lightning round for you. But I do want to touch on something that I think is important for everyone everyone here who are educators or even students who are integrating new technologies, whether that's immersive and you're putting goggles over people's heads, over people's faces, and they're now standing in a new place to learn, or it's an artificial intelligence assistant that is helping with productivity and making the students bigger, faster, stronger, or the educators bigger, faster, stronger. These new technologies are scary when you have so many question marks around them. And this morning, when I was at this AI kind of lunch and breakfast thing where a bunch of local business owners were discussing how do we tackle artificial intelligence at our local business. And the person on stage, her name was Kendra Ramirez, said a super important thing that people always forget about is the human aspect. And it seems simple, but you have to make sure that before you integrate these new technologies at your educational institution, your place of work, or whatever it is, that you sit down with the humans in the room, your coworkers, your staff, your students, and say, is anyone here concerned about AI? Is anyone here have any troubles with this? Because we're going to probably do this, and we want to do it together. And if you don't do that, she gave an example of a company who was so excited by AI, and they're like, we got to do this. We got to keep up with the times. And so they just immediately started implementing it. And within a few days, 3 of their employees quit and said, you're doing AI? I'm out. And perhaps they would have stayed if that human moment happened where they had a discussion and they were able to air out their concerns so they could be spoken to. Perhaps not. Perhaps they have a hard line with AI and say, nope, it's Skynet. I don't want anything to do with it. And she went on to talk about how that's actually the sadder scenario, that they draw such a hard line at the new technology that they will be forever siloed from the direction and the shift of the industry until they start to open up and have an open discussion about it. So just everyone who's listening, who is considering or thinking about how we're going to integrate AI, don't forget the human aspect. Don't forget to talk to people about, we're going to approach this. Is everyone comfortable with approaching this? And if you're not, let's talk about it so we can do it together.
I also think with systems change within higher education, it's critical that leaders be transparent. That's part of the human element about why they're considering AI. You mentioned to me previously in a past conversation, Devin, that hospitals are short-staffed, that colleges are paying fees now to do clinicals, that there's waiting lists for nursing schools to get more seats. And all of this data is a problem that sometimes needs to be shared as part of the story of why we're adopting this AI to address this problem. But we need to be transparent about, okay, well, what are the problems we're trying to address through this structural change? And if we're not doing that, we will alienate future students and our own staff. And so for me, that's the human element, is not just being friendly and warm, but being transparent and real about what we're considering and acknowledging that it's a difficult pilot. We're going to explore this and get feedback from you. Human-centered design would say we get feedback throughout the process, iteratively, and see if we want to keep this or see if we want to use another solution. But to make sure that every person in the room feels like a stakeholder, is so important if technology is going to work for us, because it can backfire.
Thank you so much for the discussion. I feel like we could talk for another hour about this just because it's changing. We could probably pull up the news and see something new that's happening right now.
That's
For
true.
example, I didn't mention this before, but did you hear about Klarna?
I did not hear about Klarna.
They replaced 700 human call center employees with an AI.
Yep.
And their customer service calls went from 10 minutes on average down to 2 minutes, and the customer satisfaction went up. And it's just a well-trained, siloed system.
It's disruptive, and it'll be disruptive in positive and negative ways. And the call center phenomena for our students at our college will be felt. The idea that that's going to be at least a job as you go through college. It may be less available. We have to upskill across every industry with our students, and we have to recognize that whatever skill sets they're learning may be outdated in 2 or 3 years. So we want to also make sure that they're training them on feeling confident about how to learn new technologies. And that should be part of our curriculum moving forward.
Yeah, I got to look something up really quick. Hold on. Hold on. I got to look up something really quick.
Please do.
Okay. Hold on. Holy moly. That can't be right. Really?
It's 9:15. Yes, that's correct.
200. Goodness gracious. All right. So I just ran some quick numbers on this Klarna thing because we were talking about this AI that replaced 700 jobs. So what does that mean for the company? So that's increased productivity for the company, but that's also if these call center employees are making a meager $15 an hour, which is $31,200 a year, times 700 employees that's over $21 million.
Sure.
And productivity and customer service goes up. So yes, that AI is going to cost, but that is a direct cost ROI for that company. And if you can translate that similarly to an institution, an educational institution, that gets me really excited because the solution to our public health crisis, I'm looping it back around, right? The World Health Organization, we've got a shortage, we got staffing shortage, we have healthcare issues that need to be solved in public health. The solution is education. The way to get more physicians, more nurses, more frontline workers on the street is to educate them. The only way to do that is to be more efficient in education and use better technologies to do it. So how can an institution, an educational institution, do what Klarna did?
I don't want to assume that the path forward is going to be through reducing staff and bringing AI in to replace staff, which is kind of what that model is.
I agree with that. There's a difference between a call center employee and an educator, 100%.
But you mentioned before, it takes 6 years to be a doctor, 2+ years to be a nurse. The time that it takes, if that could be slightly reduced and the nature of it shift moving forward through AI, wonderful. It's not replacing the idea that the human has an essential role that is a human role, especially in the medical profession. You probably saw the study that came out. I think it was in, what was it? I think it was Nature magazine or Nature, the journal Nature, which showed that AI has better bedside manners than doctors. Maybe AI can help us learn how to use better bedside manners, but all the same, we want humans in the room, especially with medical concerns. And the new imperative will be, how do we help our students tell the story of what they bring that AI cannot do by itself? What is the value added that we have? How can we do what AI cannot? And what can we do with AI that we couldn't do without AI in our specific discipline, which would be in the medical sciences fields?
Well, I would argue that if we can relieve our clinical professionals from needing to do 4 years of OChem and memorizing the entirety of the Grey's Anatomy book because there is a competent AI assistant that can help them with remembering what the name of the muscle is behind the left eyeball on the right-hand side, and allow that medical professional to get better at their bedside manner and that become more a part of their education, including nutrition, perhaps we will be producing more competent, better medical providers.
I think it's inevitable that AI will touch everything and will have the ability to fix our broken things. I do feel like, as much as I fully support public education, it's a relatively new thing in the history of time. And in many ways, it's broken, as is the healthcare industry. So it can fix the broken parts, or it can just kind of patch over them and keep moving. And so my hope is that we hold on to the broader goals for, which is why we care about education, or why we care about healthcare. At the end of the day, what are we utilizing these tools? What problems are we trying to address? Rather than just getting more efficient, what does true quality of care look like that is equitable? What does equitable healthcare look like? If
Yes.
everybody has an equitable standard of care, AI might be used to address that problem. Or on the flip side, it can actually conceivably create more disparity around access. I believe both are possible, and it really depends on how we advance the use of AI within our schools, how we support equitable access to AI for all of our students and our patients. And these will be messy questions that we have to hold on to as we explore these fascinating new technologies.
I love that you went to equity and access, because the devices that are behind me in the background, if you're not watching on the YouTube channel, come check it out. I got a bunch of VR headsets behind me, and there's a hardware divide here. So the idea that someone could become a better healthcare worker because they are immersing themselves in some VR headset and they learn better and they become more competent is phenomenal. But some of these are $600 or more per device. And so there is a hardware divide where uh, it's not equitable. However, the internet with open access GPT AI assistant, all you got to do is go to the library, and that's extreme power. So I'm hopeful that AI improves equity and access, because you will not be able to keep it away from people who cannot afford it because it's free.
Patient-centered care. Uh, let me give an example of just going to the even to the dentist, being able to see my teeth on the screen in front of me and what they're about to do and why I need to brush better. you know, it's super powerful to have that experience. We're going to see experiences with VR and AR where we're going to be able to go in and look at any sort of issue that we're facing relating to surgeries, et cetera, and understand the scope of what we're about to experience using goggles, using um, VR, AR, or augmented reality of some kind. And that's going to be integrated with AI in the future too. And there will be price points. And I don't deny that, we're going to have expensive technologies moving forward. We need to engage our students in exploring the limits of these technologies because they're going to be changing exponentially, but they're going to be part of the profession. We need to be just conscious of the fact that, yeah, there are going to be some high cost items that we're going to have to know how to use. My hope is that we can advocate for solutions that provide a more equitable access for people, for clients and patients, regardless of their income levels down the road. And that's an advocacy point that I think we just need to hold on to.
And with that, Reed Dixon, thank you so much for joining us on the Immersive Med Pod. Where can people find you if they want to follow you or read some of your work or listen to some of your talks?
Sure. The easiest way would just be to go to my website, which is reeddixon.com, reedddickson.com, or follow me on any social through Reed Dixon UX. That's my handle. Please reach out if you have any questions or any thoughts. Love to continue the dialogue.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.